So, in the last video, we talked about some general ideas, things to remember, to help you to learn how to think in English. Very general things. So, in this lesson, we're going to really start actually doing some real practice. Okay, some real work toward being able to easily think in English. So we're going to be talking about reading today and the importance of reading. By the way, reading is really important. Okay? You may be thinking, reading, boring. I don't need to learn to read. I want to be a good speaker. You might be thinking that. Or you might think, well, reading, of course, reading, but I already know how to read. I know what reading is. Why are you talking about it? Luke, I'm Luke. Well, I'm talking about it because I want to show you how to read. And for those of you who think reading is not important, in fact, it is important. Let me give you a simple example, okay? Nobody would say, I want to have the fruit and the leaves of the tree, but I don't want there to be any tree. Okay, the leaves. Let's use the leaves as an example. Leaf, right? You make a leaf here. Oh, not that great. That's a leaf. Okay? I want to have the leaf of the tree, but no tree, please. Well, this is a similar idea. I want to be a great English speaker. I want to be able to think perfectly in English and express myself about everything. But I don't want to understand English. Doesn't work like that, okay? Reading is like the tree in some ways. It's not the only thing like that, but really, reading, literature, newspapers, magazines, books, novels, right? All of this gives you a foundation. Foundation is something strong that holds everything up. A foundation, a deep understanding of English. 98% of native English speakers, perhaps more, maybe 99% of native English speakers, like myself, have a very deep background in literature, in reading. The primary school, middle school, high school, and continuing into adulthood. Now, I often read. Reading gives you a deeper understanding of the language. And there are many different forms of literature, right? There are many different styles of writing. All of this helps you figure out how you can best express yourself. What is the reason that someone who learns every English idiom, expression, and maybe 30,000 English words still can't speak like a native speaker? Well, there are a number of different reasons. One reason, haven't read very much literature. They don't have a deep understanding of the language. This is one reason. So think of reading as the trunk, the main part of the tree, okay? And then you can get the leaves more easily. Reading is really important. So now we're going to talk about how to read. What is the best way to read? And then we'll talk about some different resources, some things you can read. So let's continue. Okay, so we're now going to look at a short, actually single sentence. And I just want to give you a feeling about what reading can do for you and how you should do it when you're actually reading, if you want to get the most benefit from that. Okay? So let's look at this sentence. And I've just written this. This might be something from an article. Maybe you're reading an article about French wine. Okay? Or an article about red wine. Maybe you're reading something online. Okay? And you read the following sentence. While red wine is produced in many different regions around the world, each of these regions share common features. Okay. Now, for some of you, I'm sure you understand this completely. For others of you, perhaps not. Okay? So, I'll talk about the meaning and how to look at it, but first, if you do understand this 100%, that doesn't mean this is useless to you. It's still useful to you. Now you've seen a common way that a person who understands how to speak and write probably pretty well, right, naturally expresses themselves about a certain idea. So you've seen how it's done. This kind of thing, just reading like this, can give you a basic foundation, a general feeling. General feeling. That's an I. Hoo. That's an I. A general feeling for the language. This is one very good way to express this particular idea. Not the only way, but it is one way. Okay, and so the more you read, the more you get a feeling about these things. Now, let's actually look at this and see if we can figure out how we can learn more from it. Okay? Now, let's say, for example, we know the word produced. To produce something means to make something, right? But maybe we don't know in what situations produced is used. When do we use produce? When do we not use produce? Right? We can't use produce in every situation. Right? We wouldn't say, oh, that woman produced a baby. I guess you could say that, but most people don't say a woman produces a baby. Technically she does, but we don't say that. Why not? I don't know. I don't know why not, but I know that that's weird. Okay? And you can get a feeling for what's weird and what isn't weird. Weird means strange. By reading. So this is great. We can see here that red wine can be produced or made. Hooray. So we know another situation in which this word can be used. Good. Good. Now we might see produced in another place, about a factory. A factory producing bicycles. Okay, we can use produce there. We might see something about a movie. This guy is producing a movie. Oh, great, I understand that. Now that might have another meaning. Produce means to provide money for and arrange the movie. Ah, okay, so I can get a feeling about that. So the more you see words like produce in these different situations, here, in the situation of talking about red wine in an article, the more you can get a feeling for this word, and the more you get a feeling for it, the stronger that tree will be, right? The depth of your understanding of English will be, and you'll be able to use this in the right places and think with this word rather than just using it where you guess it should be used, but you're not sure, right? So this is one aspect, okay? Let's continue here. Red wine is produced in many different regions around the world. Okay, here, regions. Let's say, for example, we don't know the word region. Let's say, just for example, you don't know region. What does region mean? I don't know. Well, let's just look at the sentence here and see if we can have a guess. See if we can figure it out, okay? Well, red wine is produced in many different regions around the world. Around the world. Okay? In. Interesting. And many different could be also quite important. In, I think, is a key word here. And around the world, I think, is a really, really important phrase here. Okay? From these two things, in can't be that many things. It could be in the factory, maybe. Okay, maybe. Around the world. Okay, that can't be factory. That can't be winery. That can't be the place where it's made, the company where it's made. So it must be something else. Around the world. World is a big place. Okay, so in around the world. So what could regions be? You might be able to figure it out, or at least get the feeling for what this word might mean, even though perhaps you don't know the word. And this is just an example. Okay, maybe you know this word, but sometimes you will find a word you don't know when you're reading. First thing you should do is try to figure it out. Okay? So I'm going to guess that regions, because I'm talking about around the world and in, I'm going to guess that this is similar to the word areas. I know the word areas. I know the word places. Many different places around the world. That works. Many different areas around the world. That works. Okay? I'm going to guess this is the meaning. Now, once I've guessed it, maybe I will go and look it up or check it in the dictionary. Now, you should probably be using all English dictionaries. I recommend using an only English dictionary. There's a good website you can use, vocabulary.com. It's a C. .com is pretty good. You can look it up there and get a feeling for the word even more. So that's a good one. But the first thing we did is we looked at the context. We looked at the context of the word. The context means how it's used, the sentence around it, the grammar around it. This is the context of the sentence. And by checking out the context and trying to figure it out, we are thinking in English. We are forcing ourselves to think in English. And this is a really, really important point here. Okay? So this is one of the reasons that reading is really powerful. You force yourself to think in English. You gain the ability to guess and figure out words when you're reading. And so you increase these abilities over time. And you learn more words while reading. And not only learning more words, now, because you're reading it, you see it in the situation. And so you know when this kind of word should be used and when maybe it shouldn't be used. I've seen the word produced here. I know it can be used to talk about wine. Hey, I know that now. I see regions here, regions of the world. I know now that that can be about big places, big areas. Okay, regions of the world. That must be a pretty big area, a pretty big place. Okay, so we can begin to get a feeling for the right situation. And then when we're speaking, we can start using those words correctly in the right situations so that other people don't feel, ooh, why did you use that word in this situation? Okay, so these things together, all of these things together, the ability to learn new words in context, the ability to figure things out, thinking in English, right? The ability to understand why words are used in the places where they are used. Awesome. Awesome tools, okay? Can really deepen your ability to learn English and definitely can expand your knowledge of English, okay? Let's just go on really quickly and look at the rest of this sentence. Each of these regions, we have regions again, share common features. Share common features. So let me just tell you what common features means. Common could mean several things, but one is the same between two or more things. Maybe you can guess that from the context, the same between two or more things. We have something in common. We both like animations. So we have something in common. Okay? Common features. What are features? Well, we could look up the word. Maybe we can guess it from the context, right? We have different regions here, but we know because we have while here that this is going to be a sort of but, similar to a but clause, right? We're going to use part of this sentence to explain that something is different than the first part of the sentence, okay? Each of these regions share common features. So maybe we can guess that features means characteristics or things about those places. Things about those places. And if we go and check it in a dictionary, we will find that that is true, okay? So first, look at context. Try to figure it out. Think. Make things start going on here in English. Then go look it up. And when you do, I really suggest that you use an only English dictionary. This is the way to read. This is how you should be reading. How about resources? What should we be reading? Well, let me just give you a couple of quick suggestions. If you're looking for general materials to read, I would recommend a couple of different websites. Interesting stuff here, and you can learn a lot. So Reddit.com is a website that's a community website. And they have tons of different topics that you can read. These are called subreddits. And there's one about news. There's one called Reddit Funny. There are many different categories or topics that you can read different articles in. And it's really interesting. And there's always new stuff coming out. So I would recommend this one as a way to get the feeling for English. And to practice your reading every day. Wikipedia.com is a little bit more serious. Wikipedia is basically an encyclopedia. It has articles about everything, basically. almost everything in the world there is a Wikipedia article about. So you can search things that interest you. I usually search things about space or dinosaurs. And you can read articles about those things, and I find myself reading articles for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I can't stop myself. It's so interesting. So Reddit.com, Wikipedia.com, these are great internet resources for reading endlessly. There's always something to read on these two sites. So check those out. Some people, on the other hand, don't really like reading articles. They feel, I want something that continues from the beginning to the end, a real story, something I can follow and stay interested in for a long time, something that will always make me want to keep going. I understand that. I understand. So how about this? For fiction, if you really like fiction, depending on what you're interested in, find a short, simple novel. I can recommend one that I like that's fairly easy, Harry Potter. Great series of novels. They're not too difficult. The language used in Harry Potter, not too tough, but there's still enough there that you can definitely learn a lot. And the stories are fantastic. They're interesting. So if you like fiction, that means a story that's not a true story, then check out Harry Potter. Or if you're not really interested in magic and this kind of thing, fantasy, then there are a lot of other really good novels out there. And I'm sure you can find something that you like. For nonfiction, I might recommend Who Is and Who Was. So, for example, who was Steve Jobs? Question mark. This is a series where they have many different famous people in the series, and you can read about their lives. And the language that they use is not too difficult, pretty simple. And this is nonfiction. It's about true, real people. Okay? So who was Steve Jobs? Who is Bill Gates? Many, many different people. You can read about them. They're short biographies. A biography is a story about someone. Okay, so these are interesting and useful for those of you who don't really like fiction, things that are made up. And I also understand that, right? I often don't like to read fiction either. So these are a good resource for you. If you want to read something longer than Reddit or Wikipedia, that's continuous, but don't really like fiction, I would recommend Who Is da-da-da, Who Was da-da-da, books. Pretty good. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to be talking about how to learn new words. We did this a little bit before when we were talking about how to read, right? Looking at words in context. But we're going to be in the next lesson really focusing on the best way, the right way to learn new words. So I will see you in the next lesson.